Alrighty. Good morning, PTI and I's Daily Show. My name is Brian Melrose, coming to you from the jungles of Fort Collins here in northern Colorado. I'm one of the lead faculty in the spine division, teaching both cervical and lumbar courses. And I'm stoked to be here on a clinical Tuesday to talk about something that I think we need to do a better job of, and that's building the bike for breath work. And so, really, what I mean by building the bike is something that's talked about a lot in ICE, and particularly at our cervical and lumbar courses. We spend some time talking about making what we do in the clinic more visible to our patients. And part of making things more visible in the clinic is selling them and getting them bought into physical therapy, whether that's lifting weights, whether that's getting them bought into a manual therapy technique that we think is beneficial for them, whether that's pain relief or priming. We show them that. And I think in the same way, when it comes down to breath work, we have to do a little bit of a better job making the value of that visible to our patients. Again, it's always our job to show them. It's not their job to know that there's value there. And so we got to build the bike for all of our folks, but particularly when it comes to breath work, because I think it can be a little bit, I wouldn't say taboo, but some folks find it weird, right? They don't really understand what's going on. They maybe think it's a little bit hippie or something religious even, and they just don't really know how to engage with that, and they don't really understand why we want them to do it. And so I think one of the best ways we can get over that barrier with folks is making it very visible to them. And so when we talk about building the bike, even in the case of breath work, what really facilitates that process is having some good asterisk signs. And so we always talk about having two objective and two subjective asterisk signs for each patient. The subjective ones are the ones that probably matter to them and they're living out in the world. But the objective ones are the ones that we're using in the clinic for our test retest model, and really straddling the remeasuring of those objective measures between our treatments. And so breath work should not be any different than that. And so when it comes to having an objective asterisk sign for breath work, I think the number one thing that we have to do is slow down a bit and make it visible to them with something as simple as using a pulse oximeter. So, a pulse ox that should be available to almost everybody in every clinic across the country. And I think that's the best way to kind of make this visible to the patient when we work on breath work with them. So typically what happens is when they come in, they're a little bit tuned up, they're dialed up. And the first thing that we can do is probably start off by just popping the pulse ox on right off the bat. And what that will give you is an initial heart rate reading. Sure, I'll write it down, but I also want to make that visible to the patient. So I show that to them. Maybe they're popping around 100, 110 beats per minute. And it's a great way to kind of say, like, hey, remember this number. This is something that I want to work on you with. And so, after that, then you kind of get into whatever type of breath work you like. I mean, if you're looking for an ICE episode on that, our division lead, Zach Morgan, did a phenomenal job talking about our, top three breath work strategies that we like. I think that was July 30th of 2024. So you have to go back a little bit, but that's also on his page. It can be whatever you like for breath work, though, right? Just a nice, clean, basic diaphragmatic breath. Maybe it's a box breath technique. Maybe they're doing some longer holds and inhaling or exhaling through the nose. Whatever it is, I don't think the strategy matters as much as picking something to kind of straddle that kind of test retest measure with. So again, took the pulse ox number one. You roll your breathing work out, and sometimes within as few as 2 to 5 minutes, again, you've kind of done some education or you've at least done some treatment in terms of your breath work. And so usually the pulse ox has gone to sleep. I usually just have patients, rested on their chest. But at that point, turn that puppy back on, let it take another reading. And right afterwards, you have your second objective measure. And for a lot of our individuals, they're going to get a significant change in that heart rate. I mean, it sometimes can drop to, 50 or 60 for some of our healthier folks down into their 40s, which coming down from like 100 beats per minute Man, I think if we can make that visible to them, they go, holy shit, like these breathing techniques might actually work for me. And we know that the moment when folks say, hey, like I might be in the right spot, I might have the right thing, they have a high belief and expectation, they're going to be more willing to kind of buy into those techniques because outcomes will come alongside of that. And so I think it's really important that we begin to integrate this style of kind of showing patients how the breath work, actually facilitates that drop in heart rate, in blood pressure, in respiratory rate. Because again, it's a little bit foreign. The only other thing that I kind of going to talk about in this space is maybe who's this is appropriate for or why this works. And I think with that, we got to zoom out even a bit further. I mean, America does not run on Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on the sympathetic nervous system. My background is in health psychology, and if you look at the vast body of research there, everybody is constantly driven by their sympathetic nervous system. High heart rate, high blood pressure, high respiratory rate, and that's kind of just how we get things done. I always make a joke in our course that think about somewhere in Spain. Like imagine packing up midday, 2 or 3 p.m., going home and taking a nap. Like the eagle would cry. Like we would not get away with that in America. It's very anti-American and foreign. And because of that, again, we got to help our folks realize that they're under a little bit more stress than they imagine. I don't think we can really fix this until we make folks a little bit more aware of it. If you can't find it, you can't fix it. And so there's a lot of cool ways to help our folks become a little bit more aware of it these days. All of the wearables, whether that's a watch, whether that's a Garmin, the brand doesn't matter. If you have the ability to set a notification if the heart rate gets over a certain rate, that's a great way to just dial your patient in real quick so that, again, it's visible to them when something is heightened and they know to go to the breath work for a little bit more of that relief throughout the day. And I don't think it's, again, just our dialed up patients that need this. It's everybody that needs this. I don't care if they're not a chronic pain patient or maybe they're not in a high pain experience. When anyone comes and sees us in the clinic, I really do hope that we're finding it part of our basics to do things like asking about sleep, to asking about diet, and to last, asking about stress. And so, for a lot of our individuals, even if they don't feel stressed out, this is a great tool that you can give them for times where maybe that's different. Why not give them a little bit of a gift up front, in the plan of care for something that they might need to use during that plan of care or even later on in life? Breath work should be that. And so, again, I think we got to give this tool to everybody that comes into the clinic, not just our folks that we perceive as being a little bit more dialed up. My only final point with breath work is with the pulse ox, when we've made it visible, they suddenly have a tool that they can use on their own. So it's a great way to reinforce some of those home exercise kind of implementation of breath work. Like, hey, like this is a strategy just like anything else. You got to learn to control your diaphragm. You got to kind of expand your lungs as you kind of gain more control with this technique. Use the pulse ox. What they cost like maybe $10 on Amazon or at your local, Walmart or CVS. Go in and get one. Keep one at the house. This is something that you can use time and time again to show yourself why this technique works. I also like being able to show them that it's a good retest measure in the clinic. Maybe the first day we tried it, it took 5 minutes to get your heart rate down into the 50s. But as they get better at this technique, whatever breathing technique you've selected, we can really dial that down and give them 2 minutes. Say, dude, you're starting at 110 right now. Let's see if in the next minute or two we can get your heart rate down into your 50s. Almost again creating a game or a little bit of a feedback loop for them to get a little bit more buy-in with our breathing techniques. My last point in this space is trying to get folks a little bit more on board on doing breathing throughout the day. When I was at Colorado in Motion with Tim Flynn, a lot of other fellowship trained therapists, Terry Gebhardt was one of the folks that I spent a lot of time with. He would always talk about kind of getting breath work in and getting some of these mindfulness techniques in throughout the day. Like, why wait until the end of the day when your whole system's ramped up and been working all day long and expect some breath work around 9 p.m. to get it to drop off like a cliff? It's just not the way our nervous system really works. And so, again, these breathing techniques, it's not a pill. It's not something they have to go purchase. They have all the skills right in there. Let's tap into that and really get our folks to get into that breath work throughout the day and kind of chip away at it so it stays low. And again, a cool skill that we can teach folks to engage the parasympathetic nervous system throughout the day. So I know my personal ones are coming up with a rule. So every time in between patients, when I'm wiping the table down, force myself to take 4 deep breaths. It's the same thing when I'm driving around, whether I have screaming kids in the back or whether there's traffic trying to get to DIA. At every single red light, I force myself to take 4 deep breaths. And so by doing some of those things, whether it's a high stress activity like driving that we know is kind of part of it, or something else where we're just integrating breath work throughout the day, those things almost become second nature to our folks. They don't have to set a reminder anymore. They don't have to do it 5 times a day because we told them to. It's just part of their lifestyle at that point. And that's much bigger than, again, just fixing someone's pain. It's those lifestyle changes that we're always trying to bring to our patients. So, I hope you enjoyed today's Clinical Tuesday. Again, it's all about building the bike with breath work and making our changes there a little bit more visible. Whether you think about that through the kind of objective asterisk lens in terms of measuring it before and after the breath work, bust out your pulse ox, get the new battery in there, make sure it's tuned up, check their heart rate when they come in, do a little bit of breath work with them, and then check it afterwards. Show them that it works. Get them one at home so they can be more consistent with it. Use this throughout your plan of care to keep them consistent and help them see that breathing techniques are just like anything else. The more we practice, the better we get. And again, the faster they can drop themselves into that parasympathetic mode. My final point, share this with everybody. Again, don't limit it to just certain folks. Give them that gift of a little bit of awareness to their stress. And again, a form of lowering their sympathetic activation. That's not a pill. It's that diaphragm that's already living in there. We just got to teach them to tap into it. And then that's something that they can keep with them. And again, changes their entire lifestyle. Cool. All right, team. Final wrap up thing here. Just want to outline some cervical and lumbar courses we have coming your way. This weekend, we're going to be hitting our summit. So, again, all lead faculty will be meeting here just north of Denver in Windsor, Colorado for our cervical course. We got a couple of tweaks we're making to it. So, a little bit of new content and style of doing things, but tons of feedback. If you are in this area or would consider even flying out to Denver, we got only a couple seats left, but that's going to be a great course. And again, you're going to get tons of hands-on feedback, lots of lead faculty in the room to help you with things. The next one will be the following weekend. I will be up in Anchorage, Alaska. It's going to be cold. It's going to be dark. But if you know folks that are up in Alaska, we got some seats left for that. I would love to spend the weekend with y'all working on some cervical management techniques. If you're looking for our lumbar courses, it'll be coming early in March. So Zach will be outside of Austin, Texas on March 1st and 2nd. And then I will be out in Wichita, Kansas on March 8th and 9th. Cool. All right, team. That's all I got for you this morning. Hope you have an awesome Tuesday. If you have any questions or comments about breath work, again, you can always hit us in the comments. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much for joining us.